Hi, we looked at inheritance and you completed a inheritance. So we plan to go through and have a bit of a chat about how you compare to your parents. But for today, we're going to look at, which may also link to what you noticed with your parents, something called dominant and recessive genes. Now, you may have heard people talk about dominant traits and so forth with regards to human traits. So you might see things like a dad with brown eyes and a mum with blue eyes, and all the kids have brown eyes, which is certainly what's the case in my family. So that would lead you then to say, well, maybe brown eyes are more dominant, a dominant trait that masks the blue-eyed gene. Now, obviously, my husband that does have blue eyes would pass that gene on, but I have brown eyes. I also have passed that gene on. Why is it that my children have got brown eyes and not blue? So just a little bit of light relief to start our lesson today. You can see over here something from the far side. No, this one's Tyson Cole, and the baby's just been born and he looks just like his father, and that he does. So let's get into this inheritance of traits. So when we're looking at these traits, we've known about inheritance for a long time. Farmers have been using their idea and knowledge of inheritance to grow crops that had the desirable traits they wanted. Now, they didn't know it was called genetics, they didn't know about traits, but they certainly knew that if they crossed certain plants, they would get some characteristics that they wanted. And it's what people have been using with dog breeds for a long time. So we're seeing it more so now than ever, where people are selecting traits that they want to have with their dogs. And certainly those that are crossed with a poodle have become more common of late due to their type of fur that they have, which is better for people with allergies, and they don't shed and so forth. So we see our cavoodles, our labradoodles, or whatever they are. So our breeders are mating them together, knowing that the offspring will have the characteristics that they want. And this was also the case with domesticating animals. We found that all dogs, say, have come from the wolf, but some wolves were, I suppose, more interactive with humans, and that benefited them because they would come and they would give them some food that might be left over or whatever, and so then they could look and go, oh, there's this trait, oh, that's great, and breed those animals. The same with horses, so draft horses to pull big logs. They noticed maybe there was a horse that had a bigger, thicker set and would suit that purpose, and they could reproduce those animals. So we didn't know a great deal initially. So while it has been observed for a long time, it was only about the 1800s where scientists kind of came to discover how this might work. And one of them was a man called Gregor Mendel. He was a monk in Austria, and he decided to have a look and see how genetics worked with regards, or inheritance of traits with regards to pea plants. Now, why did he choose pea plants over humans or animals? Well, I suppose we can think about ethics for a start. We don't really want to be experimenting on animals, but the main thing was our reproductive cycle. So if we're reproducing on humans, it takes our generation can be 18 to 40 years, depending on when you have your child. That's a long time before you can see the results of your experiments, whereas pea plants reproduce quite quickly. So he always used pure breeding plants in his experiments, similar to using a purebred dog. When we're talking about a purebred dog, we might use one golden retriever that's a purebred, meaning its parents were both golden retrievers, so it has golden retriever traits, and breeding that with another golden retriever. So when we talk about something being purebred, it means they all have the same trait. So we'll talk about the alleles in a minute. So if we were to breed two tall pea plants, which is what Mendel did, jumped ahead there, he bred one tall plant, and if he bred it with another tall plant, it would get to a tall plant. That's what pure breeding means. You know what you're going to get. If he bred a short plant with another short plant, he would get a short plant, because they're the only genes they have is the gene for short. And so he knew what he would get. But he wanted to know, well, what would happen if I crossed a short with a tall? So here he has taken his short with a tall. And he found in that first generation, so we call this the parent generation, and this is the first generation, often known as F1. And he knows they're all tall, every single one. So we're kind of getting an idea that obviously these short genes or short plant had to contribute something to the plant, so they must be there, but they're all tall, so the tall one has mastered it. So it's looking there like the tall one is dominant. So the tall trait was called a dominant trait and the other one was called recessive. So what he did then is he took the offspring of this generation and crossed them together. Now they're all tall. So you maybe would think, I'll cross a tall with a tall and I'll get a tall. Now that would work if we had purebred. But these ones aren't. These ones are hybrid, just like a cavoodle is a hybrid where it has some traits of the cav and some traits of the poodle. This is a hybrid. So there are going to be both genes there from the tall and the short. And so while they look tall, they do have a mix of those genes. So when he crossed them together, he actually found that here I crossed two talls together, and on average, he did it a lot of times. We're talking hundreds of plants. So on average, it worked out that he would get 3 talls and 1 short. So that tall, and that should say short there. So he got 3 tall and 1 short. So that's the ratio we're looking at, 3 tall to 1 short, every time we're looking at a cross between the F1 generation. So if you look over here, it introduces the word allele. Now, allele is different forms of the same trait. So I'm looking at height. If I'm looking at height, there's a tall trait and a short trait. If I'm looking at color, there might be a yellow flower or a purple flower and a white flower. They are 2 different traits. So we have 2 different alleles, 2 different traits for the same gene. The gene might be color, the gene might be height, the gene might be scent or something, but the alleles are the 2 different forms that gene could take. So we've looked at that now, and as long as we have 1 dominant gene there, that will be the gene that is presented, that is expressed, we call that in genetics. It's expressing that genotype. So genotype is what genes it has, and again we'll look at that in a minute. And the phenotype is what its physical appearance is and what it looks like. So he published his findings, and he wasn't appreciated, as all good scientists are not, until after they die. Now, he represented a lot of this data, and we're going to look at this in Punnett squares. So here, a Punnett square shows you what possible combinations could look like when we're crossing certain things together. So here, when he did his hybrid plant, you can see here, big T, we represent the dominant trait with a capital letter and the recessive trait with a lowercase. And we're talking about tall, so we're using the letter T. So the female plant here, this is a symbol for female, has 1 dominant gene for tall and 1 short gene for tall. And the male plant has the big gene for tall and a small lowercase gene also. So these are the 2 alleles for the same trait. So to work out what we have, we put them in like a tic-tac-toe box. Here are the mother's genes, big T and a little t. So remember when we did meiosis and we produce unique gametes? In the gametes, the female plant might have the tall gene is what's given to the child, or it could give the short gene. Who knows? It could give either, and that's where it's unique. And the father could do the same. It could give the tall gene, or it could give the short gene. So here, the mother, these are the 2 options she could give, and these are to the child, and these are the 2 options the dad could give. So like kind of reading a grid referenced map, we bring these 2 together, a big T and a big T will make a big T, big T. this little t and this big T will make a big T, little t. This one, come down, it's going to give a big T and a little t, and in this column here, it would produce a little t, little t. So we can see that written over here now. We can see that we have a big T, that's called a homozygous. A homozygous trait is when they have got two of the same type of allele there, so they're both capital letters. This also is a homozygous trait where they are both little t's, but they are both of the same letter. These ones here are called heterozygous, hetero meaning different. So homo meaning same, hetero meaning different. So here it's got a capital and a lowercase. So we can see though, despite these two being pure and these two being hybrid, the capital T masks the smaller t because it is dominant. So we will have 3 tall plants to 1 short. So let's have a look at a human example. Here we have a hairline, and in your characteristic traits that you were asked to survey your parents and yourselves about, it did ask, did you have a straight hairline? So you can see on this man here, they have got a straight hairline, whereas this person here has what's called the widow's peak. Some people call it the devil's peak or the devil's hairline, but it's called a widow's peak. Here he has a straight line. So here's Dad, he's male. He does not have that widow's peak, and that widow's peak is dominant, but he doesn't have it. He's got a straight hairline. So he has the genotype, so the genes, the 2 alleles that he's got is WW. The mother here, so here's the female sign, she does have a widow's peak, but her genotype is big W, little w. So her genes are saying she's got 1 allele for the widow's peak and 1 for the straight hairline, but her phenotype, her physical appearance, is that she does have the widow's peak. So write the possible alleles in Dad's gametes across the top. So Dad has WW, he is homozygous for the trait, and his 2 alleles are that he has a little w here and a little w here. For Mum, she has, this is her genotype, so she will have 1 capital W, 1 lowercase w. Now what we need to do is combine those traits together. So we have our big W, and then we have our little w. So our little w coming through with our big W, we'll get big W, big W. So we'll write that there. Dad has lowercase, lowercase. Let's put an underline underneath just so that we know that we're talking about their lowercase rather than capital. And here we've got our big W and our little w here. So we have got the mother who's got a big W and the dad has got a little w, so we've put the underline under that one. Again, we've got the big W and the little w underneath. Now we've got Mum having a little w and Dad having a little w, so both of them will have the underlines underneath to say that they're lowercase, and the same for this one here, they both will be underlined. So if we have a look here, this one and this one have got the capital letter and a lowercase letter, so they have the genotype, big W, little w, but their phenotype, what they look like, is they will have the widow's peak like their mum. So in this case, we are going to have a 50-50 chance of developing a widow's peak. These ones are dominant, so they will have the widow's peak, and these ones are recessive, and they won't. So let's have a look at another example. But before we do that, I want you to pause the video and write these notes in your book. So our heading is dominant and recessive traits, and I want you to write these notes down in your book, please. So let's have a go at another couple of questions. Copy these questions into your book and have a go underneath. in the spaces provided. So write the question, have a go at the answers. So the first one, cross a big T with a little t plant. So what are we going to do there? So the first thing we need to do is draw our tic-tac-toe kind of noughts and crosses line. Up the top we put one parent, big T, and down the side the other parent, lowercase t. As we've talked about before, we bring the two together. This T comes down into this with this one here. So we usually write the capital letter first. Big T, little t. Here we have big T, little t. Then again, big T, little t. And again, big T, little t. So what we have done here is we have crossed two pure or homozygous plants. And what we're finding is that all of the F1 generation is tall, but it is heterozygous tall. So on your previous sheet, you wrote down what heterozygous was. Remember, another name is hybrid because it has a big T and a little t. So this is its genotype because they're the genes, the letters, and this is its phenotype, its physical appearance. So what I would like you to do is have a go at the next question. Pause the video, have a go. The answers will be there. Then we will continue on and you can check your work then as you go. I would like to see that you have completed all the notes and these questions by you uploading them into a learning task. Just a screenshot of your book will be sufficient and there'll be some more questions for you to do tomorrow. So have a go, pause the video, have a go at the next question and we'll keep going. So here we have a big T with a big T with another big T with a small t, a big T with a small t. All offspring will be tall. 50% heterozygous and 50% homozygous. So here we have a blue-eyed cow, little b, and a brown-eyed cow. Now this brown-eyed cow is heterozygous. It has one dominant trait or one dominant allele, for an allele for the brown-eyed and an allele for the blue-eyed, but that brown-eyed masks the blue-eyed because it is a more dominant trait indicated by the capital letter. So in this case, what percentage of the offspring will be blue? 50% of the offspring will have blue eyes. So how did you go? Correct your work, make some notes. If you've made some errors, fix them up. And I'll set you some extra problems to do tomorrow. See you then. Bye.